The impression the game you get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea. He deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Hello, and you're very welcome to Treaty Talk. It's episode 309. Myself, Tom Clancy, and joined as ever by Matt O'Callaghan. And Matt, you just told me before we started recording, it is your 300th episode. So you've only had a couple of absentee slips for us in the past. So congratulations on that milestone, Matt. Fair play.
Thank you. I've missed 9 since it started, and with my eldest there during the year, I lost 6 of those, so I could be heading up for 306 other than that, Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted. It's nearly time to throw me out now, Tom.
I know contract is still on the table anyway there, Matt. You're not like Mo Salah. You're not looking for the big bucks. You're here for the good of it all.
I haven't signed, but
yeah. Very good. Very good. Yeah. Well, we've plenty to discuss as usual on this show. We've a look forward, I should say, to the under-20s football final. We've a look at the great success of Mungret St. Paul's, and then we'll bit of discussion around the Limerick Senior Hurling panel and a few other bits and pieces, under-20 hurling final, Harty Cup, and a few other bits and pieces that will pop up along the way. But something that is,
any week we're talking about a Limerick team reaching an All-Ireland final is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know we'll be dealing with it in greater depth in a few minutes, or shortly. But look, the performance of Mungret is just, it's off the charts.
That's it, yeah, and a free taking victory over Coolera Strandhill, and a date in Parnell Park in the All-Ireland final. So it's something to get very much excited about, even a couple of weeks out from it. Okay. You mentioned winning or getting to All-Ireland finals. Our next guest is someone who's familiar with All-Ireland finals and indeed World finals. We're delighted today that we are joined, whenever my system here allows, by Miss Martina McMahon, world champion. I was going to say once or twice, probably a little bit more than that now, Martina. So you're very...
You're spring up short, very, very short there. She'll tell us in a minute. If she parks her modesty, she will tell us in a minute. Martina, you're extremely welcome. Delighted to have you on as a guest.
Thanks very much, Tom and Matt. Yeah, look, I suppose for me, the senior titles are the ones that count, and I think I have 7 world titles to my senior name now at the moment, and hoping to strive for more.
Brilliant, yeah. Well, congratulations on the most recent successes on home soil as well. Obviously it's a world competition, but Ireland playing host to the handball tournaments this year in UL, and I think it was, am I right in saying Wexford was the other venue? Or am I slightly off with that?
Wexford, Croke Park up in Dublin, and it kind of shifted around Leinster venues. But
right.
So the wall ball was on in the University of Limerick in August. So yeah, I was delighted to win that one, especially on home soil, as you said. So I won the small ball and the big ball. Wall ball there, and then we shifted to 4 wall within 9 weeks, so training from one code to the other, trying to get used to having all the walls back again and the different ball, and went back to Dublin then for the World Championships for the 40x20 or 4 wall as it's called, and won the doubles, but unfortunately fell short in the singles in a tiebreaker. But yeah, just to give a bit of background, I suppose, of the World Championships. So they're held every 3 years and they rotate between Ireland, America and Canada. But the last World Championships weren't held because of COVID. So I was going in as the reigning world champion from 2018. But for the singles, obviously for the 40x20, but I maintained that for winning the wall ball. But yeah, that's kind of a short synopsis of how the world happens for GA handball. But yeah, we were delighted to have them on home soil. There was no jet lag, which we were happy with this year. But it's always nice to travel as well.
Yeah, you referenced it there as calling them codes. Now the four wall, I should say. As you said, the walls are literally back in, so there's four walls. But the one wall. Geez, I'm getting my words mixed up. The, do you see them as two different sports almost? They're the same skill. You know, you're obviously trying to beat an opponent. They're the same objective, but you do see them as very different codes in terms of how you train for them, how you prepare, how you even tactics within the game. How can you explain a bit more of the difference between the two, please?
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose I'm kind of one of few that actually supports all codes of handball. So to start at the top, I suppose our traditional game was 60 by 30, or also called softball. So the name 60 by 30 comes from the dimensions of the court. So it's 60 foot by 30. So each of them kind of have their own separate season within the calendar year. So the 40 by 20, are also known as the four wall, is basically 40 feet by 20. And the show court that we played in the Worlds actually had 3 glass walls. So it was even more difficult again. Usually you have a cement front and 2 side walls, and only the back wall is glass. But this is the first time that I've ever played on a court with 3 glass walls. So the ball is dark blue. It's kind of the size of a golf ball. So it was difficult to see because everything was, you could see out through the glass, and the corners were black and everything. Then the one wall, are also called wall ball. It's basically just one wall, and the floor is marked out with tape. And you can have one wall small ball or one wall big ball. So the big ball is essentially like a racket ball, the pin balls, and then the small ball is the same ball that you use in the 40 by 20 or four wall. But literally you just have the one wall. So they are kind of like 3 individual codes and sports. So let's say for the 40 by 20, it's a lot of, let's say, power, a lot of twist, and you can use the ceiling. A lot of it is kind of setting yourself up with a good serve so that the return, you can either cut it off and place it into the corners. Whereas the one wall, it's obviously you're trying to angle it out so that it bounces within the lines on the floor, but you're angling your opponent out to the side so that then it leaves the other side open, the opposite side open for the ball to place down. And then the 60 by 30, so again, it's 4 walls, but this time you can't use the ceiling. And the ball here is, I suppose, the benefit for females playing it is that it's the same ball across all male and females. Whereas for the 40 by 20, we use a different ball to the men, so it's hard to get training games. But in the 60 by 30, we use the same ball. So it's a size of a slitter, let's say. It's red, it's spongier, filled with air, but a little bit harder than, let's say, your racquetball. So
Yeah.
it's interesting, and as I said, yeah, I tried to support them all. To me, I just loved the game of handball, and when I was playing camogie back in the day, handball greatly aided my camogie.
Yeah. Two quick questions off the back of that. So, one, which would be your favourite form of it, of the sport, and two, where in Ireland do we see pockets where one is more popular, or is Ireland unique maybe in promoting them all? Or, you know, if you could answer those in terms of, I know, as you say, Canada and the US, it's a very popular sport as well. But what's Ireland's approach, and indeed your own approach to those?
Yeah, I suppose, to be honest, I don't really have a favorite. When you're playing one code, and then when that's coming to the end and you're moving into the next code, you kind of have a relief that that one is over, and you're starting again fresh. But for me, I suppose I just love the sound of the big alley ball when it smacks off the front wall. It's like that song, you know, the alley cracker. So there is something to be said for it because it's our traditional sport as well, our traditional game. But to me, I have no distinct favorite, to be honest. I just enjoy all 3 of them, and they bring 3 different kind of forms of the game. And then in terms of like pockets, so I suppose there'd be a lot more 40 by 20 courts around everywhere in Ireland, and they kind of colonize in certain areas, all right. But there's an initiative going on in the last few years where they're trying to promote one wall into schools and that. So a lot of the schools around locally and actually nationally have erected up one wall courts. So that's kind of promoting the game now, that it's not just at club level and existing clubs of 40 by 20 and 60 by 30 courts having to build one walls. We're kind of getting kids through the schools. To me, one wall is kind of the future. It's the code that seems to be taken over at the moment. It's the code that they're going to try to get into the Olympics as well. Probably past my career and playing days, but I never know. You might come out of retirement, but yeah, like the sport is certainly evolving, and especially then having the likes of the World Championships in Ireland, where you could, and in Limerick alone, where you could basically introduce kids locally and just bring them in, and it was a free event. So a lot of people just turned up from, let's say, that I would have known from various schools, and now they have a flavour for the game. So hopefully it'll drive on players to join various clubs around the country.
Brilliant. Matt?
Martina, talk to us about your recovery from what was a career-threatening injury.
That's right, yeah, Matt. I suppose back in January 23, I got the news that So basically during COVID, when all the outdoor field sports were back, obviously handball, because we were an indoor sport, we weren't allowed to play. So to keep fit, I went back playing camogie, and I ended up taking up soccer, to my detriment. But basically, yeah, so I was playing soccer with Ballingarry AFC and ended up just kicking a ball from one wing to the other. And when I went to turn, I just basically landed on my back on the ground. I don't really remember it that much, but I got up and went away home, was crippled, couldn't put on my socks, and then a couple of months going through various procedures, consultants. They tried various avenues to try get me back playing, and I was just stuck in limbo. So my consultant up in Sports Sanctuary Clinic ended up telling me that we're all out of options here, that we're going to have to go for a spinal fusion surgery. So it was supposed to be a double level, but he told me if I did a double level fusion, I'd never again play the sport. And he said even at a single level, there's no guarantee you'll be able to play, and you certainly won't be back to the level you were once at. So it was kind of just weighing up sport versus everyday life as I get older. So I just had to bite the bullet and go with the surgery, because the pain at the time was quite substantial. So ended up going through the surgery, was out for the bones at 12 months. Definitely stuck to my recovery to a T, because like yourselves, I'm just sport driven, sport mad, and I wanted to get back and prove everyone wrong that I was able to come back and play the sport I loved. So my physio was happy. He thought I was progressing very well, and actually thought I was about 6 weeks ahead of where I should have been for my recovery. So with that, I was like, yes, I can get back playing. And I went back all too soon. Yeah, I thought it was a case of I'm signed off now, I'll be able to do what I was always able to do, but that wasn't the case. So I essentially had to kind of retrain myself again, how to play the game. There's certain things I can't do, obviously, because it's a fusion. I have a solid block down the lower half of my back. So rather than reach into balls now, I kind of have to lunge. So I have a small bit of restriction. But yeah, there's talks that I'll have to go for the double level fusion within the next 5 years. But that just makes me want to win as much as I can now. It gives me a lifeline for the next 5 years, and hopefully I'll defy the odds then again.
So what you're saying to us now is all those challengers out there, watch out.
That's it.
It's really on the prowl.
That's it, exactly.
Now, you know, you had a physical challenge during that time of your recovery. Psychologically, how were you feeling and thinking? Were you just saying, you know, I have to do this physically so that the game I love isn't taken from me?
Well, that's it, I suppose. Yeah, you try to remain positive, but we always have that doubt. The devil is always on our shoulder. So there were some days where I felt that, yes, I'm invincible, I'll be back. And then other days reality hits and you're like, Jesus, what happens if I'm actually never going to be back? And you're thinking, is this the end of something that I've always done and something that I've known for the last 21 years, going training every day to handball alley, and when it can just be taken in the blink of an eye. But I suppose you kind of have to take the positives from it. The consultant didn't tell me I wouldn't be back. He just said I may not be back. So it's just trying to turn those into positive thoughts. And I suppose, like, not to sound like a psychopath or anything, but when you give yourself some positive energy, it kind of helps in the aid to recovery as well. So, and again, obviously, my family, my mother, my handball coach, Pat Murphy, were basically the center to my recovery. And without them, I definitely wouldn't have made it through, because there was some hairy days, but it was just I had them around me saying that you will be back, that you will overcome it, and thankfully I did.
Yeah. Had word spread of your injury around the handball community, and were people eyeing up your titles, do you think? And were they surprised then that, I'm trying to think of a movie character here that just burst through the door, ready to go, and everyone's gasped, I presume it's such a small community within Ireland in particular that, like, word does spread, and maybe people, I'm sure, far and wide probably were extending their sympathy towards you and trying to to keep in touch with you. But a long road back, I think it's fair to say.
Exactly, yeah. No, look, to be fair, handball is, I suppose it's a small community, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like a close-knit family as well. So once the door closes in the alley, everyone wants to win, and it's all each for their own. But outside of that, you never want to see anyone end their career through an injury like that. So I did get plenty of messages and support throughout the recovery, and it did. I suppose I can't talk. I suppose if the shoe was on the other foot, I'd be saying, yeah, Jesus, I want all those titles now. But I'm sure there was a few thoughts around that. But nothing was ever sent through a message through me anyway. But yeah, no, I got great support around various people that I would have been friendly with in the community, hoping to see me back. And when I did come back, I got a warm welcome back to the game.
Yeah. As someone now who's played 300 or 400 soccer matches, I wouldn't say that everyone gets injured like that. It sounds like a bit of a freak injury. It's something that it's just one of those things that happen. But, like, is that the end of it for other sports? You're completely narrow-minded, and rightly so, on handball. And this, physically, that's probably all you want to put your energy into now, into the foreseeable. You mentioned camogie obviously as well.
Yeah, so I actually had a meeting with my consultant, another review, a 12-month review, not so long ago. And he told me up there and then that basically handball is basically where I have to stop. He said no contact sports, so I can't go back to camogie or any of those where I could potentially come into a belt of a shoulder or that. But yeah, look, I suppose you have to take.
Or more, I was going to say.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But yeah, it's disappointing. I did love playing camogie as well, albeit I kind of dropped it for the handball to try get to the top in handball. But yeah, there's differences. Like, handball is an individual sport, whereas camogie, it's a whole team sport. So when you win something there, and just actually on my own club, Crocalfinny, they're flying in the camogie this year. So, when you win there's a whole team, and it's a mad laugh. Whereas in sport, I suppose, or in handball, it's kind of more individual. So you get more reward, I suppose, in one sense, but then the circle of celebration is a lot smaller.
Yeah. We mentioned. Go on, Matt. Sorry, yeah.
Martina, the battle between yourself and Katrina Casey of Cork is the stuff of handball legends. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, I suppose myself and Katrina definitely go through the war path when we play each other. Yeah, I suppose back in 2018 is probably a standout year where we played, I'd say, in every single final and in the 40 by 20 All Ireland Championship. So it's the best of 3 games in handball to 21. And that day I won the tiebreaker, but the scores were I won 21-20, I lost 21-20, and I won 21-20. And then again in the 60 by 30, we met in the All Ireland final there, and the exact same score, 21-20. I lost 20-21, and I won 21-20. So, like, there's only as a hair breadth between us. And then in the World Championships, I had beaten her there as well. So that was probably a standout year for me. But then the year after, she comes back again and she takes the title off me. But anytime we play, it's down to the wire. I think one of our longest games went on for about 2 hours and 45 minutes. But yeah, I suppose in the bubble of handball, it's probably one of the, let's say, this season of 2018 is probably one of the standouts to male and female across the handball environment, where they just thought that our encounters that year were something else, and it was a great, I suppose, drive for the people in sport, and especially girls in sport.
Actually, Martina, I don't know whether I told you this before or not, but when you won the world title in 2018,
That's right.
it was the same day as Limerick won the All Ireland. And
That's right.
I remember being in that great sanctuary, which is the All Ireland winning dressing room in Croke Park, when I got the text from your mum that you had won the World Cup, or won the World Championship. It was fantastic double for Limerick, but it probably got lost a small bit because of Limerick's success. But talk to us, we know what hurlers, footballers, rugby, soccer players go through in terms of preparation for the top of their sport. Tell us what you have to go through to prepare for handball at the level at which you're playing, which is the very, very top.
Yeah, look, I suppose it takes savage commitment. Like, to me, I try train 7 days a week. And if I didn't have a full-time job, I'd try train twice a day. But yeah, like, it's similar in a way to the likes of hurling and football, and even the likes of tennis and that. But a lot of it is court time, and a lot of the hard miles are done through court time on your own. It's the boring, laborious stuff that you do on your own. That's what makes the impact. But then outside of that, I try to travel to games. So let's say for the World Championships, I was traveling, let's say, back to Glenbeigh and Kerry during the week for a game. So that's about 1 hour and 40 from my house, training for 2.5 to 3 hours and coming back home. So I wasn't eating my dinner until 11:30 every night during the week. But it takes a lot of gym work and strength and conditioning. And actually, I had a coach there, Amy Breen from AB Coaching as well. So her mom, Breda Breen, everyone knows who she is. So she would have helped me out from let's say, a strength and conditioning point of view, and with my nutrition. But again, it's all self-funded. Like, we don't have, we're all individuals. We pay for everything ourselves, even as far as the lights for the alley. So like, we pay €1 for 10 minutes to use the lights in the handball alley. But again, financial cost doesn't come into it because we're doing what we love. But yeah, it's basically training 7 nights a week, training against different opponents. But for me, I train against men, and sometimes I play 2 men against myself on my own. So trying to beat them, trying to kill the ball there. If you don't roll it, it's picked. So for me, it just forces me to get my shots a lot sharper and a lot cleaner. And then outside of that, then is doing like various fitness work in terms of running. I'm addicted to high rocks at the moment as well. And then strength and conditioning training, the likes of CrossFit and that. So again, it's all very much managed by myself. But I try to train as much as I can, definitely 6 days a week with 1 day rest. Otherwise, I'll eventually cave in. But yeah, look, it's all basically just what I do myself. It would be handy, all right, to have, let's say, someone do all that work for you, do up your training plans, but it's all pretty much myself at the moment.
Tom?
Yeah, Martina, you mentioned a lot there about being an individual. Obviously, a bit like any of the players who play intercounty in GAA, Camogie, ladies football, you'll always have a club listed beside you. Now that club is Broadford. Now you're not obviously from Broadford, but clubs in Limerick, I mean, are they continuing to, I suppose, swim against the tide a bit in terms of it's difficult, I'm sure, for them to keep things going, to keep the lights on and stuff like that. But you mentioned the schools there bringing in, a lot of schools locally and nationally, introducing the sport to kids. Is that the platform to grow the sport, and can the sport be grown in the, I suppose, short and medium term?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think if you're getting the sport exposed to kids in schools and that, it's obviously a great starting point. And just to your earlier point, yeah, look, it is tough, especially since COVID as well for various clubs. And then obviously when the hurling and football season starts up, it's hard to keep handballers or people that were just introduced to handball for the whole 12 months of the year, because it clashes with soccer and football and hurling. So it is difficult enough to keep kids playing. But we do have some great coaches, and even my own coach, Pat Murphy, he does a lot for Broadford Handball Club, and he coaches the kids there, and he also goes to various schools trying to promote the game. But yeah, I think it does need to be brought into various schools and just expose the game as much as we can from a one wall capacity, and then hopefully transfer them into the other codes once they join a club. But I don't think it's a hard ask, to be honest, and I think the headquarters are working on it, and various clubs around the county are, and basically various counties are trying to promote it in various schools as well. So I do think there is a future there. A lot of work to do, but I think the foundation has started.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, and there's an avenue, of course, to get to Croke Park as well, because obviously there's the facility in Croke Park. So there's, that's maybe a sell for those getting involved. But the fitness, you mentioned your regime there. The fitness, even if you're just to take a child and maybe the child mightn't be overly interested in handball, but like the fitness level that you can get to by playing regularly, I'm sure is phenomenal, because and the other skills, the hand-eye coordination, the balance, the acceleration that you'd hear S&C coaches speaking about for, we'll say, Gaelic games or any other sport for that matter. Like handball feeds into all of those. Like I played a small bit of tennis in the last year myself. I tell you, you put manners on you in terms of fitness. Like if you're not up to it, because it's all short, snappy stuff and twisting and turning. And handball is probably even more exaggerated in terms of the levels of those things you need.
Exactly, yeah, no, 100%. And handball definitely uses every muscle in your body. And you know that if you don't play it, and then let's say when I returned after my surgery, when I went back first, Jesus, I was having pains. I forgot where I had muscles. But yeah, look, it is a great sport. And it is very good for kids that are playing GAA as well. It complements the GAA, I think, and as you alluded to as well with the hand-eye coordination. But yeah, like I've kind of forgotten half your question now. But
But there's a lot to it in terms of it. It's, if you were to target the kids and parents or clubs and say, yeah, as you say, even if it's just for a couple of months in the winter or the springtime, like there's an easier sell there than maybe you might ordinarily think in terms of health and fitness, and maybe developing an individual, because you go to a camogie session, there's 20 kids, coaches are, the ratio there is quite high sometimes, and trying to get time with each player, whereas maybe if they're in their local handball club, they get that time to really engage in those skills we were mentioning there.
exactly, yeah, no, 100%. And it'll always bring on, let's say I know a few that have started playing one wall, and let's say their weaker hand now has vastly improved from playing handball. And then even when they're out into the pitch playing hurling and even football for feet, but for hurling predominantly, you can see that their left and right sides, their striking has improved as well. So like it is great. It definitely wouldn't hinder any GA sport. If anything, it would only advance it. And yeah, like it is, you need, like when you look at handball from the outside looking in, it looks like you're only a little hamster chasing around an alley after a ball. But until you actually step in and play the sport, you wouldn't realize how difficult it actually is. And yeah, as I said, it it speeds up your reactions. Obviously, your fitness is vastly improved. And I actually read an article, I remember a few years ago, where handball was the number one sport to burn the most calories per hour. So again, that kind of backs up that you're kind of using muscles you never thought you had. And it's just an addictive sport. Like we're all in, especially in Ireland and especially in Limerick, we're just mad about sport. But I'm telling you, once you start playing handball and you step into an alley, it just grabs you. It's an addiction. And even Paul Brady, when he won the men's open there in the 40 by 20, um like he's in his latter years now, he's more of a mature man, we'll call him. and even he said that he came back because he just finds the sport so addictive. But like, what better addiction would you want in life?
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. Yeah. Where's next though, where's next though, Martina, for yourself? You mentioned the 5 year, maybe you have a 5 year plan, and is that it? Or you obviously hope the back holds up, like all things being serious, like, but what's next in terms of what are you going after in terms of the sport for the foreseeable?
Yeah, I suppose enjoying the Christmas now, all right, but it all kicks off again in the beginning of January for me. So I think the 18th of January is, let's say, the tournament of focus for me to return to, and then obviously championship next year, and ideally just to get as many wins under my belt as I can, and hopefully get to do some travel to the States and that for the pro tour over there over the next few years, and basically just pump as much as I can into it, because you never know when the day comes that I might have to give it up. But I don't think it's going to be 5 years. I think I'll supersede that.
Oh, yeah, very good, very good.
Martina,
We love the ambition.
of course, the Worlds wasn't your last success. You have far more recent success in the Golden Gloves in Belfast recently.
That's right, Matt. Yeah. So literally a very quick turnaround after the 40 by 20. I didn't have too long to lick my wounds. Went up to Belfast for the Golden Gloves up in St. Paul's. Always a fantastically run tournament. So I was 100% going supporting it. And yeah, so the same girl was in that tournament. She lost out in the semi-final, and I won it out. So I suppose in one sense I could say I got revenge back. But it was nice to finish the year on a high as well, and it gives positive thoughts going into 2025.
When we were chatting there off air before you came on, Martina, while we were waiting for Tom to sort himself out, we were, we were talking about what sometimes is forgotten is that handball is part of the GAA family. And
That's right.
does it rankle somewhat with the handball fraternity that it doesn't seem to get the same level of esteem and level of importance that the other four codes get?
Yeah, look, I 100% agree with you. So yeah, it falls under the realm of GAA, but in terms of, let's say, the promotion that it gets versus, let's say, hurling and football is quite small. We're kind of on par with the likes of rounders, which also falls under GAA. And I suppose just me as a player, that's difficult as well. Because like we're putting in the hard miles the same as any inter-county player, and then when you're putting in all this hard mileage, the hard ground, all self-funded, and it doesn't get the same limelight as those in the inter-county scenes for hurling and football, it can be a bit frustrating. Obviously, I would like to see it promoted a lot more and just see a better backing behind it. But again, I suppose that's a work in progress. But it's just, I suppose, how we can, as players, can help that is by promoting the sport ourselves and supporting every competition we can, and hopefully one day get it seen at the top level, and hopefully get it promoted to a higher stance than it's currently at.
Yeah, very good, Martina. We've discussed plenty there, and thank you for your patience when I had technical difficulties. But look, we're wishing you the best now for 2025. Both obviously on a competitive front, and indeed particularly in the injury camp, and hopefully those are literally behind you, and 2025 is equally, if not even more successful for you on the various courts and in the various codes, as you say. So hopefully we've covered plenty there in terms of explaining the sport, because the sport that I would know very little about, but you've certainly filled me in, and I'm sure our listeners would be appreciative of that as well.
Yeah,
perfect. Thanks a million.
And congratulations on everything that you've achieved to date, Martina. The very best of luck in 2025, and I hope you'll exceed that 5-year sentence that is put out here. And like at this stage of the year, all we can do is wish you and like one of your great mentors, your mum Rose, a very, very happy Christmas. And
thanks very much
for 2025.
Thanks very much, Matt. Thanks, Tom. The same to yourselves.
Yeah,
happy Christmas. Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon. So, okay, yeah, fantastic chat there, Matt. Great to be joined, as we said, by Martina.
You know what? it annoys me a certain amount, Tom, that here we have within the GA fraternity a real international superstar.
Yeah, and she mentioned Paul Brady as well. He was definitely a name I knew down the years, and he's another multiple world champion, isn't he? And someone that
Yeah.
never got the recognition in terms of not that they're in it for awards, but in terms of the headlines that come out of the court.
I want to ask her how many national titles she had won, because I'd say it would embarrass her that she has lost count.
Right. Yeah.
But her battle with Katrina Casey, and that's why I specifically asked the question. That is the stuff of legends. Legends.
You can imagine
she was so forthcoming about it when we asked about it.
Oh yeah, well you can imagine that she explained it 21-20, last 20-21, and then won the final. By the same score. It's fantastic, and they did the same then another day. Phenomenal. And for her to edge the two of them is just, it'll tell you the steeliness is in her, not to mind those injuries as well.
Steeliness and resilience.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't get a chance to you touched on it, but I didn't get a chance to ask her. But if my memory serves me right, I think she played inter-county camogie up to minor level.
Yeah, I think maybe even junior panelist at one stage. Yeah. You're certainly right. She definitely did represent Limerick in the green of camogie. So, and she probably downplayed her camogie exploits and talents there. But no, it's great to have such a star on.
I remember, that when she decided that she was going handball, it was a huge loss to camogie. The camogie association were really, really, really disappointed because they had lost a great prospect. So it was about to break through, but it was her right to choose her sporting path, and by God, didn't she make a good choice?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Camogie's last was handball game.
Unfortunately, from her point of view, her great success has coincided with Limerick's success, and Limerick's success has probably dwarfed an awful lot of what's going on otherwise. But I would say that today on our podcast we were talking to a genuine sporting superstar.
Yeah, and she's one of our own here in Limerick. So well, congratulations, Martina.
All the better.
Yeah, well, congratulations to her on her return from injury. And I tell you, that injury sounded like it would put many people off, but she'd come back to climb the
McMahon.
climb to the top again in her sport. Okay, right. We will return to the topic which I mentioned right at the start of the show. Ladies football, Matt. Cooler at Strandhill were the opponents. Mungret St. Paul's travelled up to, it was Turbo-Curry was the venue in the end. And Mungret St. Paul's, despite going 3 points down, Matt, in a very low scoring game late on, they conceded a goal. They had the wherewithal. They rattle off 3 in a row, bring it to extra time. And even when they were pipped at the post for the victory, brought to freeze, they held their nerve, and they're heading to the AIB All-Ireland Ladies Junior Final. So it's fantastic for all connected.
No, you were there, Tom.
I was, yeah.
You have an advantage over me, and I look back on it yet because I was tied up with the paper with election coverage and government formation and parity of esteem and all that sort of stuff that's doing the rounds.
I'll tell you, Matt, the only tally that mattered in the end was the 3 frees that Mungret scored. That was the biggest tally of all the weekend that we all cared about.
The most important tally of which I was following on Twitter at the count.
Yeah, very good.
Look, it was fantastic, and forgive me for being a small bit colloquial here now and parochial.
South Limerick.
Then Claire Coughlin's vital point. She's never mind Matt Patrick. It was. It's nothing more than she deserves. She has given so much to Mungret Camogie, or to Mungret St. Paul's ladies football. But it was an overall team performance, Tom, and you can see through the Limerick Championship, in Munster Championship, the emphasis on the togetherness, the camaraderie, and the team.
Yeah,
and
The panel match, yeah.
Phenomenal. Now you have been sidetracked with your sister Mairead on the team.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say even the inside track, but like having been at the last couple of games now, their bench is winning them the games. Their bench is sustaining them in games because they've been up against it against both Middleton and indeed against Cooler Strandhill the other day. Like they weren't behind against Middleton, but they came under serious pressure. But then they roll off Yvette Culhan or Yvette Moynihan, as people may recall her as a few years back. You mentioned Claire Coughlin. They brought on other players at the weekend to use 4 or 5 subs, and the same in the Munster final. That is the difference for them. The bench is, the starting 15 are leaving it all out there because they know, look who's coming in from the line, the experience and the class. Yeah. And you mentioned it's not just about the forwards. From Carol Bateman in the goals from the very first minute, she was really on song. She made a great save early in the second half, or probably 3/4 mark in the game. And, she was beaten for the goal, but that was like, a 1-on-1. And then, they had the experience then. They sent up some of the most experienced players in their team to kick the frees, wise management, wise ownership by the players. Okay, Claire Coughlin took hers, put it a couple of yards wide, but Carol Bateman stepped up. And bear in mind, she's a goalkeeper, Matt. She stepped up like she was a veteran free taker at inter-county level, straight between the posts, And then Fiona Morrissey kicks the winner as well.
Before you go away from Pal, she's been absolutely phenomenal this year.
Yeah.
She was absolutely phenomenal in the county final. She got the player of the match.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you need only look at her record. And your reference to the defence there, that it's, look at the scores against them, Tom. 5 points in the Munster final. Go into a Munster final. Go into a county final and you only concede 8 points.
Yeah. And 1-5 in 80, 1-5 in 88 minutes, 90 minutes nearly of football,
Do we have to say any more?
Yeah. No, it's tremendous. And
it's the togetherness that's in that squad. Anya Ryan is a fantastic leader.
Yeah.
At centre field, we cannot, and when you're talking about leadership, Ronnie McKenna, an absolutely huge addition to him. You know, and you have leaders on the field and you have leaders in defence. Cameron Maloney, and they're given the leadership. And it's all about leadership. But the big thing about leadership is they're getting a response.
Yeah.
John Horgan's management has been exemplary. And himself and his management team, they've got all the big calls right. And that's why they're in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
When to spring the experience, like when they sprung Claire Coughlin and Yvette Moynihan or Yvette Culhan, as she is now, from the bench, the two of them come on and get the 2 winning scores. Yeah,
and then the leveler then the other day from Claire, and I'm sure you saw the score, Matt. It's up on Twitter for those that didn't see it. That's 7 minutes into stoppage time, and nobody panicked. They worked it from the right wing, 3 or 4 hand passes across. Claire Coughlin came around on the loop, as they say, waiting, give me that ball. And she put it high into the sky and let the wind carry it beautifully over the bar. Phenomenal stuff. They played brilliantly. And I know people will say they only won on frees, but bear in mind now, they went to Sligo and beat the Sligo champions. They went to Cork.
In their own backyard.
They went to Cork in Mallow to beat Middleton. They went to Abbeydorney to beat Abbeydorney. I tell you, there's been fewer tough routes going all Ireland final. Yeah. Yeah. It's the Downings, it's the English version of it, the Gaeltacht area, Nadunig, I think, or something like that. My Irish is shocking. But Donegal opposition in the final. Parnell Park on Sunday the 15th at 2 p.m. So, we'll be looking at that more again next week, Matt. But it's very exciting times for the club. We mentioned it was their first Munster title on any code a couple of weeks ago. They're now in a first All-Ireland final and 60 minutes away from a first ever All-Ireland title. So, what a carrot in front of them once again.
I am probably not surprised, because 4 or 5 weeks ago, we brought in representatives. We had Mungret representatives in here.
Yeah.
To get a sense of what their club is all about, and the cohesion within the club between the codes, like, is a paradox as to how the one club concept can work.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. It is just simply phenomenal. Like,
And
you go down there, and I love going down there covering matches.
Yeah.
Because you sense you're in someplace special. Like, along with the development on the field, going hand in hand is development off the field, and that's pitch development and social development, astroturf, ball, all that sort of thing. To go on hand in hand to enhance and to have the proper facilities there for the numbers for which they're catering for. And like, they have a huge future in both codes, in that, right up to almost minor level. They're fielding 2 teams in every code.
Yeah, and the boys' side of the house, and they're getting there as well with the ladies' football and camogie. They're getting the numbers through the door. In fairness, the one club thing, and we won't stress the point too much, but Cooler Strand Hill, who their opposition, operate on a similar basis. On Saturday, they were in an All-Ireland Junior Ladies semi-final, which, Mungret beat them in. And on Sunday, they were the first Sligo men's team in 41 years to win the Connacht Senior Club Football Championship. Yeah. So there's the club again, unified on and off the pitch, and reaping the rewards for it. And Cooler Strand Hill is not a huge area. To be fair, it's it's a little bit outside Sligo City, or Sligo Town, I should say, but it's not the most populous part of the world. But yes, they've come together, and you could see, speaking to part of their club there before the game, like they're a club that's operating on that basis as well, and getting the rewards from it. We'll stay on football, Matt, because at the same time, apologies, my camera slipped. At the same time on Saturday, literally the same time, I think it was, Mungret St. Paul's under-20s, the men, were marching their way into another county final. And
yeah, they were, and it's the second last step in their defence of the first title, which they won in the grade last year.
Yeah,
and they have set up a rematch of last year's final, which they won in extra time by 1-6 to 8 points in Tournafulla with Father Casey's. Billy Mulliner, the man that got the vital score. And but sad thing about it, Tom, and we discussed this during the week, and I think you have figures on it, unfortunately.
I do, yeah.
They don't make good reading, in that we had a walkover in the semi-final.
Yeah, I'm shocked, to be honest with you, Matt. I got news of it Friday night. It was Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon the game was to be. And I was shocked to see a club like Newcastle West giving a walkover. Now, again, I have not heard directly from anyone in the club as to why that was. Was there, other circumstances that we're not aware of?
Yeah, but there may be circumstances that we are not au fait with, that we're not privy to,
Very surprising that happened. I think that was the under-19 final last year, actually, those two, wasn't it? Father Casey's Newcastle West. Yeah, so this is now the under-20 grade, so, it's not. It couldn't be a weak Newcastle West team. They're obviously in a Premier semi-final for a reason. They're not, but for whatever reason, they weren't able to field, and Father Casey's just stroll into the final. Yeah, just looking, I had to dig around some of the results, Matt, in terms of walkovers. The under-20 football grades, whether it be Premier A and B, we've had at least 20 walkovers, 20 and counting, 21 in the hurling. 21, apologies. 21 in football and 21 in hurling. So it's not a football issue. It's a football and hurling issue. And rewind back to the late summer, we had 27 walkovers in under-18 football, predominantly in the lower grade. I think in that case, we wouldn't have had too many in the under-18 hurling championships, maybe. Don't have a figure now on it, but I do have a figure.
It's not a seasonal thing.
No, it was 13 walkovers, in under-18 hurling, and I think it was predominantly in the B grade. The decision, Matt, and I would love to get clarity on when and why it was made, but the decision to go from under-17 to under-18, and from under-21 back to under-19 to 20, whichever way you look at it, has not worked. Certainly this 2024 version has nowhere near worked.
Tom, this annoys me now, what you're saying. You're touching a raw nerve with me on this.
Right,
I
yeah.
cannot understand for the life of me. Under 18 and under 21 served the Gaelic Athletic Association, the minor since 1928, the under 21 since 1964. And why did they change it?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
need? I heard no one crying out for a change of it.
Well, in Limerick,
They had this phony decision about burnout and all that sort of thing.
well, in Limerick, Matt, Clare is still under 21. Cork is still under 21. Tipperary is still under 21. And I double checked, but I'm pretty sure Kerry is under 21. Waterford play an under 18 and under 20, the same as Limerick. Now, I don't think they've had the same issues with walkovers. But some of these grades, I spoke to a gentleman in Clare today. Clare play their championships on a knockout basis at under 21 level this time of year. So they drew 8 teams in each of the top grades. So we'll say under 20A football is in Clare, which would be our premier. They put in 8 teams, quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals. If you're beaten in the quarterfinal, you go into a Shield semi-final. So each team was guaranteed 2 games, whether it be the championship quarterfinal or the Shield semi-final, and so on and so on. And it would, a lot of teams would have got 3 games, 2 teams would have got 3 games, in whichever way they landed on it. And they did the same in both codes. And as far as I'm aware, a Clare reporter told me this: 0 walkovers in Clare. Teams could see the road to the final. 3 games, lads. Win the quarter, win the semi. We're in the county final. This time of year, there's so much on. There's freshers hurling.
They had that discussion with a man in Kilmallock today about actually on the very same lines. Because at this time of the year, with the under 20 or under 21, whichever it is, you have difficulty with students gone back to school. You have you fellas with a certain amount of playing fatigue at this time of the year, and they just want to get a break and get it out of their hair, But when you're talking about changing from under 18 or under 17 to under 18, under 19 to under 19 to under 20, in the last 3 weeks, Tom, we had 5 conventions in this county.
Yeah.
One motion submitted to them. Not one motion. That's a vote of confidence for the status quo.
As we said before, Matt, members of clubs will be coming to us, or you maybe more than me, but they'll be coming saying, this isn't working and that isn't working. Yeah.
But the vice chairman of the county of the county said that the South Convention I was present, that they were going to hold 2 meetings and consult with the clubs early in the new year.
That's what yeah.
Those meetings have they're not binding, or they've no standing at all. They're caucuses.
Only chit chat, yeah.
The place to discuss the structures of our championships are first at the divisional boards and then pass them on to the county board. When had we the last notice of motion at a county board convention? I remember being inside in Sexton Street, Tom, and I remember one particular year there were 53 motions on the floor inside in CBS in Sexton Street. Now we're going back a long, long time.
Right, but still, we're down to 0 now.
Yeah, but we talk about the primacy of the club, and we talk about democracy within the association, and we talk about that lovely word that they say, the grassroots. And the grassroots are great, provided they don't put their head above the parapet.
Yeah, no, it's been turning all right. And look, that's just some of the numbers behind the under 20 grades. And we obviously need to wish Mungret and Father Casey the best in that final. Obviously, those 2 teams have done their bit in terms of continuing to play in competition, and
And actually, it is the second final that they've played in this year. They played in the Premier Minor final as well.
Yeah.
So they're doing something right along the grades.
That's right. Yeah. So 1 p.m. start on Sunday afternoon. I actually thought it was Saturday. John Finn Park in Rackhill. So we'll see where the final, I suppose, top tier grade in Limerick for 2024 will end up. The under 20s hurling match, the 8th final, was concluded last weekend. Maru Boher and Ahan met in an all East affair, and I think Ahan will feel that they've done enough maybe to get extra time, but Maru Boher struck gold in stoppage time.
You know, so you know, Maru Boher, if you look at their record as well, they have been doing an awful lot of good work over there at you know, within that club. And now I know it is an area that it's a growth area in terms of population, like, but and so have a hand, you know, and all they're doing is reaping the rewards of hard work that's been put in, you know, not today or yesterday, but down through the years. And yeah, a hand will be very, very disappointed that they didn't get a shot at extra time in it. But, you know, congratulations to Maru Boher. They're certainly, you know, I fancied Maru Boher from practically the start. I think I said it here in this podcast to look out for Maru Boher in the Intermediate Championship. It didn't happen for them. They're certainly a coming team, though, Tom.
Yeah. I'm just trying to scratch my head here as to where we are with the under 20 B grade.
I don't know, Tom.
Yeah, it's that's one that's been dogged by the walkovers, I think. But we'll see what comes out in terms of fixtures.
Under 20 B, like comeback Einstein sorted out.
Yeah. Well,
in fairness, now there was a new list of fixtures out today from Mike Reardon, and I think they're heading towards a conclusion.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we're not quite at the final just yet.
There's a few ifs and ands in it, but you know, at least I hope we're at the end of walkovers.
Yeah,
and
hopefully.
It's the same in the under 20A football.
Yeah. We'll have clarity, I think, after this weekend, won't we, of who's in the shake-up down the final place.
It was a slow burner anyway and getting off the ground.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of clashes in both courts as well. Matt, what else are we to look at? We have, that's the under-20s action. Dr. Harty Cup this afternoon. Unfortunately, Limerick's involvement has shrunken just to Artskull Reach now because John the Baptist have been defeated by St. Flannan's 14 points to 1-7. As I said, I was at this game. Very, very tricky conditions in Moylish on the Toots campus, but the game that once St. Flannan's forged 3 points to 2 ahead after 17 minutes, it wouldn't be headed again. And in fairness, John the Baptist hung in, and Rory Hanley finished off a goal, a rebound. He hit the post in the first half. He'd drawn a save from the goalkeeper, and eventually the Ballybrick and Bohermore man got their goal, but they couldn't add anything else to the scoreboard, and the final 2 points went to St. Flannan's, who, interestingly, Matt, as some people will know, were managed by a certain James E. O'Connor and ably assisted by Tony Kelly. Not a bad management team to have.
We discussed it earlier today, Tom. Not a bad management team at all, you know.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Hospitals, I suppose, dreams dashed. They were trying to get to the quarterfinals, which they had eluded them last year as well. It was I think it was the prelim quarterfinals that they met Artskull Reach last season, wasn't it? So
no, it was actually the quarterfinal proper.
Oh, was it? Sorry, right. I'm mixing up my rounds. Yeah. So they were obviously hoping to match that, if not
this year, you know.
Yeah, but not to be. But no doubt some talents on it, and I think that brings us on nicely, Matt, to the next point.
Limerick CBS, not Limerick CBS, but the champions, Nina CBS, bowed out as well. They were beaten by Delisle from Wanwood.
Yeah, and at the time of recording, we don't have the draw. I don't think it's taken place yet anyway. Perhaps later this week or early next week it'll be taking place, but currently we don't have the draw. But I was going to say
Vermont survived as well against Delisle, 3 points down, they were 3 points, what was it, they hit the last 6 points anyway to force to force extra time, and won it in extra time against Blackwater Community School. Thurles CBS had a big win over Templemore. I think that rounds up to 4, does it?
Yeah, that'll be the 4. Yeah. So, as I say, no sign of the draw. I'm not sure when it's going to take place, but we'll see. We'll see who Artskull Reach are down against.
I don't think Artskull Reach have much to worry about in the draw. Like, I think they're quite capable of facing, all comers.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's just you'd wonder, as the weather worsens and maybe having a game today might stand to the 4 teams coming in this way, just to have that extra 60 minutes under their belt, but we'll see how it plays out. Yeah, so the champions out, that's Nina CBS, and also the other side out, of course, has John the Baptist Community School in Hospital. Among their team, Matt, was a certain Hugh Flanagan, and that brings us on nicely to his inclusion, among others, into the Limerick Senior Hurling panel, provisionally anyway, at least. There's a better or new names among us, the Limerick Senior Hurling panel for 2025. And great to see you there, great to see some younger faces, and we've seen a couple of guys step away as well from the scene. But, by and large, no surprises, bar Mr. Dowling.
Yeah. Look,
that was the biggest.
Shane is an addition to any squad, Tom. You know that.
Yeah. Formerly.
His presence in the dressing room, his presence in the squad, it's a major boost.
Yeah.
And to me, it isn't a terrible surprise, because
no, well, yeah, it's not. It's just, I think it's a surprise in terms of he hasn't been spoken about as an option for the Limerick goal since he became a goalkeeper.
All bets were off. You had Nicky Quaid with the injury, David McCampbell pulling out. So, as I said, but I'm not. I can't say I'm overly surprised.
Yeah, I suppose it's the headline news out of it. He'll be vying with Conor Henley Clark and Jason Gillan for the number 1 jersey. So that's good competition between the three of them, because two men who were very firm in the Limerick Championship within the goals. Obviously, Conor Henley Clark played out the field, but previously Limerick minor and Limerick 20 goalkeeper, and obviously played Fitzgibbon as well. So he's well established as a capable goalkeeper. So be interesting to see who'll end up as number 1. Who would you put your few shillings on at this juncture?
I'd be putting it on Jason Gillan, I think.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Now, having said that, Shane Dowling is being called in there, so he's not.
I wouldn't rule out any of the three of them, to be quite honest. Now.
Yeah. I think for me,
John
Jason Gillan
has in the circumstances that he finds himself, without probably the greatest goalkeeper of a generation in Nicky Quaid. He finds himself with a bounty of riches.
Yeah,
in the three that he has.
Yeah, a nice trio, and I suppose within the squad as well, Matt. We're mentioning the names who are in. One of the names that's out is Conor Boylan. With Oisin O'Reilly and Aaron Costello not included in the list as well. But Conor Boylan, and who? Sorry,
Mark Quinlan.
Mark Quinlan, yeah, another one, and. Obviously Graham Mulcahy retired, so that's kind of there's five or six names that were there, but for various reasons are not.
There are 6 for various reasons that are not on the panel,
Yeah.
And when the panel is announced, the discussion tends to focus not on who's on it, except when the like of Shane Dowling comes in, but who is not in it, and. I suppose that there's a certain element of disappointment with players around certain players. Like, I thought Jimmy Quilty of Blackrock, would be entitled to be disappointed. Owen Meany of Bruff, although he has plenty time on his side.
Yeah, we'll see him for the 20s, won't we?
We'll see him with the 20s. And this might have fed into John Kiley's thinking, because Brian Nix of Newcastle West is another one that I thought had a very good year. And what about the Fitzgerald brothers of Monaleen? But they will be under. Matthew will be under 20. I'm not so sure about Joseph.
Joseph's over age now. I wouldn't be 100% on that, but I think Matthew has another year.
They've simply been phenomenal all year. Both at senior, and then they played a major part in helping Monaleen win the county premier under 20. I get mixed up between 20
under
and 20.
20. Under 20, yeah.
Under 20 hurling championship. There are a few names that spring out to me. Delighted to see Patrick O'Donovan back on it. Delighted to see the like of Keane Scuddy, William Dorr, Ethan Hurley, Con Hayes. They're all Warday, Hugh Flanagan, of course. I think they're all worthy of inclusion. And of course, somebody that we have spoken about here, and I think I made the point some time ago that he should be ideally sent into the panel whether he plays with Limerick or not in this coming year, and that's Sean Casey.
Yeah. He's there, isn't he?
He's there. I think this guy is phenomenal. He's really. I mark him down as a special player with a huge future.
Yeah. It's probably there's a handful of guys there that are still eligible for under 20s. So we'll see. Like it's 45 or 6 names that will obviously come back down in a small bit in a few weeks.
Come down, I suppose, to 34 or 5, will it, Tom?
Yeah, I think we're carrying 36 the last few years, so we'll probably 10 of them might drift away, and they might keep some of the under 20s officially off the panel, but obviously they might be involved some which way as the year goes on, in terms of training and developing themselves. So it's interesting, and I think
the championship was an audition for getting on it, like Darragh Langan. He was a shoe-in.
Yeah, and he'd been in last year, so he'd shown his work.
So he knows what it's about. But I thought he had an exceptional year, and Moline took a huge leap of faith. Putting somebody so young in its centre back, and a bigger leap still in letting him there.
Working for every minute.
Yeah, he justified it. He justified every bit of it.
Yeah, and I suppose extending their stay, not that they're over the hill by any means, but obviously, a lot of service given to Limerick, the likes of Declan Hannon, Grode Hegarty, William O'Donoghue, these guys, it kind of, again, you'll be looking for new names, you'll be looking for headline news, but just to see those fellas included again, it's cause for optimism that these lads want another crack at it.
Barry Nash, these fellas, Sean Finn, like, what,
Yeah. Very good.
What can we add that hasn't been said about him already? You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So they're all throwing their lot back in for another year. All those names you just mentioned. Anyone else or anything else, Matt, on our agenda this week?
I need to wish Nicky the best of luck again with his recovery. It's I suppose it dampens enthusiasm a small bit. When you think that we'll be without him for much of the year, if not all of the year.
It's interesting. Yeah, there's going to be, there's going to be a new man in the goals for Limerick one way or another in the league anyway, and we'll see how things work out.
The contribution he has made has been just simply, off the charts.
Yeah, and obviously still listed in the panel officially, and it's just a case of when we'll see him back in the Limerick jersey, because I've no doubt he's such probably a competitive being, as are all those players, that he won't want to end on a loss with Cork. He wants to get back in, play with Limerick again, and contribute once more to.
And if anybody is capable of defying the odds in terms of length of layoff for the injury that he has, accrued, it's Nicky Quaid.
Yeah, well said. Okay, Matt.
He's a very fit guy that minds himself, and that will aid him in his recovery. But, for now, we can't wait to see him back.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Matt, I think we've covered plenty there in the last hour or so. Again, we must thank Martina McMahon for her contribution and wishing her again the best for 2025. Thanks to you, Matt, as always. And hopefully I'll be back up and running on the laptop next week after a technical issue at the start of the show. All right. Thanks, folks, for listening. Do feel free to share the podcast, especially if there's anyone in your circle that would be interested in hearing on the handball side of things. And we shall talk to you again next week.